Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second expert clinic organized by the Collaborative on the use of administrative data for statistics. The Collaborative is an initiative jointly convened by the United Nations Statistics Division and the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, aimed to leverage the collective expertise of specialists and practitioners across the national and global statistical systems to strengthen the capacity to use administrative data for filling data gaps and to produce more timely statistics to monitor progress and implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and to help policy and decision makers address emerging challenges such as the COVID-19 pandemic. So the focus of each expert clinic like this is defined by the needs and priorities identified by the members of the collaborative, and it is an opportunity to ask questions, to exchange experiences, inspire each other, and find solutions together. The experts that are invited to the exchange are coming from within the statistical community and do not receive remuneration for their participation, so we would like to express our sincere gratitude to our speakers today for their generous contribution and engagement. Today, we are fortunate to have the participation of collaborative members who bring valuable expertise and a diversity of perspectives, including Ms. Juliette Solano, Technical Director of Regulation at Colombia's National Statistical Office, DANE, Mr. Ko Hendricks, Quality Manager at Statistics Norway, Ms. Ling Su, Senior Methodologist at the Quality and Data Ethics Secretariat of Statistics Canada, Ms. Apollonia Oblak-Flander, Director of Environmental Statistics at the Statistical Office of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Rudy Seljak, Senior Statistician at the Statistical Office of the Republic of Slovenia as well, and Mr. Vincent Esambe-Borne, Project Manager at the National Institute of Statistics of Cameroon. As in the previous edition, this second expert clinic will consist of a formal segment where each of our invited experts from Colombia, Norway, Canada, Slovenia, and Cameroon will make a 10-minute presentation around their experiences addressing different aspects of data quality when working with administrative data sources. This formal segment will then be closed by the Secretariat of the Collaborative with a quick summary of the key points raised in the presentations. Following the formal presentation segment, there will be a second closed segment that will provide an opportunity for the clinic participants to engage in an informal follow-up discussion with one another. And the videos and the presentations of the formal segment of the clinic will be publicly available on the website of the Collaborative within a few days. And everyone is welcome to be in touch with additional comments, questions, and feedback. The 4 questions presented to the experts that are with us today are the following. How does your country engage and work with the administrative data owners to improve the quality of data? Secondly, what criteria or metrics can be used to determine whether a statistical indicator based on administrative data is of sufficient quality so it can be confidently published by the National Statistical Office? What is the expertise of the country in the process of transitioning an indicator based on administrative data from experimental to official statistics? And last, how can we ensure consistency over time of an indicator based on administrative data when the quality of the underlying administrative data source is itself evolving? So without further delay, it is now my privilege to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Juliette Solano. Julienne is a Technical Director of Regulation at DANE, the National Statistical Office of Colombia, where she promotes the implementation of standards and good practices in the national statistical system, as well as innovation in the production of statistical information, including through the work with the Advisory Council of the National Statistical System of Colombia. Prior to this role, Juliette has worked at DANE in research, design, and implementation of statistical processes to produce inflation statistics in the population census, among other things. She also has experience in the execution of innovation projects related to statistical methodology and the incorporation of new data sources and data integration. Juliette holds a master's degree in economics from the National University of Colombia and a bachelor's degree in economics and international business. So Juliette, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Luis. We are very grateful of being part of this expert clinic. So I'm going to share our experience in the case of Colombia. So shortly, the outline of for this presentation. I'm going to start with the context, going to talk about some activities we're being implementing, the process of adaptation of GSBPM, focusing on the peer review and quality framework we are implementing there, some challenges we are facing, and the next steps. Regarding the context of the COVID, as many other statistical offices during the COVID-19 pandemic, Colombian National Statistics Office has increased intensively the use of administrative records in order to provide insights through data for policymakers and stakeholders. DANE has identified the necessity of improving the administrative records quality framework so that the National Statistics Office can optimize their statistical applications. Currently, quality management is carried out decentralized and without a defined periodicity. We are aware that defining and applying a quality framework for collaborative information production system at the national statistical system level will guarantee some standards that encourage decentralization, reuse, and coherence of the statistical information that is being produced. Finally, the adoption of new quality framework involves cultural challenges and requires prioritization, training, and learning processes. So we are facing some challenges in terms of our capacities. So we want to receive the recommendations and learn from the experience of the other experts in this clinic. Regarding the activities, first, DANE has been working in the alignment of his quality framework to his generic statistical business process model, the GSBPM. We have also been designing and defining a conceptual framework based on international experience, of course, but also in our own experience, so we can have the dimension of those both dimensions in our framework. And finally, we have defining and making the prioritization of quality indicators based on the dimensions we have chosen and taking into account our context and the possibility of implement these quality indicators in a systematic way. So we have been improving the administrative record strengthening program, the methodologies, the instruments, the scheme of work with entities and providers. We have also been making pilots with agile methodologies in order to have applications advancing with the designing of the framework. And we also have been conceptualizing a data government ecosystem in which we can define a policy to implement not only the instrumental part of the framework, but also the governance that is necessary in order to get the involvement of the actors. In this slide, I just want to show how's the process of implementing and aligning the quality framework with the GSBPM. First, I want to mention that we have to increase the scope of our quality framework to focus on the quality management specifically in administrative records. So we have a general quality framework to results, to processes of statistical production, but at the moment we understand that we need to focus in the process of quality when we're talking about secondary sources. So this is reflected in the process of adaptation in the first phase of the GSBPM, detect and specify needs. We establish activity 1.5, check data availability, in which we can, which allow us to promote the diagnosis and quality checks on data from secondary sources. In the process of collection, we understand collection not only in the terms of the field operations, but also in the terms of gather and store and the acquisition of data from secondary sources. And we want to visualize the importance of set up this collection in terms of the providers with equipments, to get access continually to the data, to run the collection in terms to have the adequate technological infrastructure to make the storage and processing of those data, and to evaluate this process. In the processing phase, we also have in the integration of data, the mention and important mention to check quality in that process. Also in the activities related with edition and imputation. And finally, in the phase of evaluation, we are promoting to gather the evaluation inputs that are generated in the different phases in order to implement improvements for the next iteration of the use of the secondary sources in this case. So this is how we have been aligning our quality framework with our GSBPN, but not only this, we also had advances in the definition of institutional capacity in terms of the new processes that are needed to support all this management. For example, the process of management of data providers, but also the process of data management that are key to support all these quality management strategy. And finally, the data government policy that covers administrative records, but also alternative sources. So this implies the alignment of the standard, but also the generation of capacities at the institutional level to support all these processes. In terms of our quality framework, this is the scheme of our quality framework focus on administrative sources. This quality framework has been implemented in the peer review. The peer review is one of our main strategies in which we select key administrative records of the National Statistical System and work together with the providers and main users in order to visualize the practices of quality, but also to implement recommendations and improvements on those data. So this is the quality framework. It has too many components. The first reflects our experience in terms of the administrative strengthening program. The program has 3 work streams. The first is the diagnosis, the tools and methodology that allows DANE to check quality on those secondary sources, but also have the self-diagnosis. In a way, is a way to promote the self-assessments by the providers of data, and also the anonymization work stream in which we promote the availability of open data at the micro data level, preserving privacy and confidentiality. So this is our experience reflected in our strengthening program, but also the revision we have made about the international practices, the good practices, the new standards and quality frameworks that are being designed and conceptualized, for example, in the modernization UNESE group. So in this part of the work, we have key concepts that we have been working as administrative objects, statistic objects, in order to understand the difference between the scope of the data in a secondary source and the interest in terms of the objects that want to measure and reflect the statistical office. Or other 2 key concepts are data source quality and input-oriented and output-oriented quality. There is one of the focus we are implementing in this quality framework. So this process of adaptations considers hyperdimensions of source and metadata and data. And we want to focus particularly in the hyperdimension of data because it's the one we need to standardize and need to start to make accountability of those results. So here we have establishes dimensions, indicators, a computation method in order to ensure the systematic generation of indicators. The dimensions are the same of the quality framework, the international standard. There are technical checks, accuracy, completeness, temporality, and integrability. The difference is that we have to understand our context and determine which of all these possibilities of indicators could be implemented in the short run. So we focus on that kind of indicators. So this is the big picture of our quality framework. As I was mentioned, we have implemented this in the scope of the peer reviews. But also we are like facing challenges in all this process of conceptualize, design, implement, and piloting all these initiatives. The first one is related to how we do not create an excessive burden on our IT infrastructure, particularly on store and processing. At the moment, DANE use nearly 140 administrative records. So this is a big amount of information. So how we promote centralization, but we do not create an excessive burden on our technological infrastructure. The second challenge is how we can create a balance between the quality assessment that should perform the supplier and the statistical office. Behind all these administrative records DANE is using, there are like nearly 100 entities that are providing this data. So how we can create this balance between the DANE and those actors to ensure responsibilities and an adequate management of quality. What sort of decision can take the National Statistical Office if there is no metadata? We know that this is one of the main important hyperdimensions, the metadata, and it's a necessity, a first step in order to advance in the data revisions. But in our experiences, the providers don't always have the documentation. So at the moment, we work with them in order to create the basic documentation of the administrative record as the data dictionary. But in a systematic way, how can we deal with these situations? Other challenge is related with defining roles at the NSO to ensure the quality process. As I was mentioned before, this is the motivation to have a policy on data government. Is a possibility to start like assigning better the responsibilities inside the National Statistical Offices, providing governance and space of collaborative works with indicators and accountability. The next challenge is related with should the NSO perform his quality analysis on multiple objects. If you can share your experiences regarding the main objects that are on interest for the National Statistical System, that will be very helpful for us to overcome this challenge. And the next is how to evaluate timelines when the NSO builds a statistical register based on several administrative records. For example, the population-based statistical records or enterprise statistical records that has as inputs many administrative records, how we like align all these providers and times in order to generate these kind of products in a systematic way. And finally, how not to change variables quality through anonymization or imputation processes. We know there is very important to not only to management and quality, but also to generate the transformations that are needed in order to support the use or application of these administrative sources. So we want to overcome this challenging in knowing when is a good balance between anonymization and ensuring that the data still reflects the phenomena we want to measure in a good manner. And regarding the next steps that, for this expert clinic, as Luis was mentioned, we want to know better what kind of criteria, metrics can be used to determine whether a statistical indicator based on administrative data is of sufficient quality so it can be confidently published by the National Statistical Office, and how we can report the quality of these indicators, differentiating the administrative record from the use. The second key question for defining our roadmap is how has been the experience of your countries in the process of graduating an indicator based on administrative data transitioning from experimental to official statistics. The experimental statistics has been an opportunity for us to deliver some exercise applications we have been executing, but we want to know when is the right moment or what are the criteria that we must observe in order to produce in a regular way these statistics. And finally, for us, it's going to be very important to define how can we ensure consistency over time. We are starting this generation of application based on secondary data. So we had found challenges in terms of quality. We are implementing actions to overcome these challenges. And we want to learn from you about the impact of these improvements of quality in terms of the measures that are being produced. So these are the next steps and the key questions we want to promote and learn from your experience in the frame of this expert clinic. That was all for our site. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Juliet, for this introductory presentation. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Ko Hendricks, who is Quality Manager at Statistics Norway. Ko has been working in Statistics Norway for many years on a variety of topics ranging from self-administered sample surveys to registered-based population and housing censuses. And in particular, he has been working on quality issues in register-based statistics, which makes his experience especially relevant to the topics raised by Juliet in her presentation. So, Ko, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So here we go. You all see my presentation, don't you?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. Okay. When we in Statistics Norway, this will be the agenda of my presentation: registers in Norway, quality indicators, agreements, quality reports, and then some final remarks. When we talk about quality work, we always in Norway we always have this in mind, what we call the good circle. More use of the data improves quality, and better quality enhances the use of the data. So register owners and statisticians are interested in using the data for what it's worth. The situation in Norway, we have 3 administrative base registers: the Central Population Register, the Cadastre with all sorts of geographic information, and we have the Central Coordinating Register for legal entities, basically businesses. And then for each register, Statistics Norway has established an exact copy. And in addition, we have established a statistical copy of each register with corrected information and added information. And we use these statistical copies to provide statistical populations and to produce statistics as such. And these registers are integrated in a common data model, in a common database, one database for the 3 registers. Sorry. A few words on the quality indicators. The previous presentation already had a reference to the Eurostat research and development project, which was conducted in 2010 to 13. It was called Bluets, and I had the pleasure of working in work package 4, improve the use of administrative data in official statistics. And again, as shown in the previous presentation, this framework has got 5 types of quality checks to check the input quality of the administrative data: technical checks, accuracy, completeness, integrability, and time-related dimension. So when we were finished with the work in the Bluets working group, we had a framework, but we needed to develop the cooperation with the register owners. So at that time, the Director General, who was the Director General, he took an initiative. He wanted to establish agreements with the owners of administrative data sources. So these agreements were engaged or came into action at the very top level of the institution. So the Director General had a meeting with the Director General of Tax Administration. The Tax Administration in Norway is in charge of the Central Population Register. Our Director General had a meeting with the head of the Mapping Authority, who is in charge of the Cadastre, and had a meeting with the Director General for the Register for Legal Entities. So we established what I may remember, that there were 23 agreements and they covered more than 100 sources. And as you all know, one source you can have quarterly deliveries, or you can even have daily deliveries. So there are far more deliveries, but we have a bit above 100 sources with administrative data, in addition to these 3 base register, which I mentioned previously. And the idea of the agreements is that the owners of the data, they provide the data with the metadata and contact information and what have you. And Statistics Norway, we do the analysis, quality analysis, and we give feedback on the data quality. So then we get a kind of win-win situation. We get the data and the data owners get information on the quality, and they can use the quality to improve the quality of the data. How the reporting on the quality is done based on the framework from the Bluets, these 5 dimensions. We have 2 approaches, or 3 approaches really, but mostly the quality reporting was done at an aggregated level, where we describe problem areas. So that typical would be, as a register owner, you should have a look at these and these and these variables to improve the quality. But for the 3 base registers, we do provide data files with suspicious records sorted by type of quality check. And we have different regimes for reporting and cooperation. In some cases, it's a monthly reporting on quality, quarterly reports, and in some cases, we have workshops. So when I worked more hands-on with quality in registers, I used to get a telephone call from the quality manager who worked on quality in the Central Population Register. He would pick up the phone and give me a call, and he said, well, can you send us some more data files with suspicious records? Because he was really keen on improving the quality of his register, and he relied very much on the support from from Statistics Norway. So this is why I call this a win-win situation. Trying to answer some of the questions from Juliet in the previous presentation. How do we? Well, if you can imagine a data set with quality indicators like this. On the left, you see the units, be it persons or businesses or addresses. Let's assume that the units are physical persons, resident persons in Norway. Based on the Bluett's indicators, we have formulated quality indicators, and then we programmed it in a SAS, a SAS program, and we run the quality check program, and then we get a data file like this where we have a unit, and then let's say for unit 1, indicator 1 is positive, 2 is positive, 3 is not positive. So for this unit 1, we have calculated 4 positive indicators. And that could be an approach where we said, okay, we provide the data owner with all the records with many positive indicators. But we can also do the count per indicator. So in indicator 7, you have 4 occurrences of a positive indicator. So have a look at that indicator first before you do anything else. And then we have calculated the Q indicator. It's a very simple. It's no advanced. It's no advanced statistics here. It's basically the sum of all the positive indicators divided by the number of cells in the table, and we multiply it by 1,000 so that we get a readable number, not too many figures behind the dash. So we try to standardize the approach, but be careful when comparing this Q indicator or for different registers. And you should be careful, because when you change the number of indicators from one year to the other, we say, okay, we introduce a new check, a new quality check. Then you have to recalculate the Q again. But we have done this several times, and this is an example of a quality report for registered persons in the Central Population Register. The Q value was 5.4, and then in 2012, it increased to 5.7, and it decreased to 5.2. And that is a very typical observation. When you start working on a quality in a register, it's very often that the number of positive indicators increases because you find the mistakes, and in the next year the mistakes are corrected. So you see an increase in the number of positive indicators, and the next year you see a reduction in the number of indicators, and then you understand, okay, you're on a good path, so to speak. And then here in the bottom, you see some examples. 2 persons, spouses, partners, have different civil status. Person A is married to person B, but person B is not married to person A. We have some of these occurrences in the register, and so we provided the register owner with personal identification numbers of these couples, and they corrected it. Yeah. If you want to read more about this this approach, have a look at the recently published book by Asaf Young Chun, Administrative Records for Survey Methodology. Some final remarks. Extensive use of the data improves data quality. We can highlight quality issues towards the register owner. We can communicate on quality issues. Communication on quality issues improves data quality within the National Statistical Institute, between the National Statistical Institute and the register owners, and among register owners. I have presented this approach 4 national conferences on quality in registers, quality in administrative registers, and the register owners are really keen, really interested in this approach, because as register owners, they are very interested in improving the quality of their registers. But there will always be a need for methodological solutions to bridge the gap between good quality register data, that's one thing, and good quality register-based statistics. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Con, for your presentation and very interesting insights. Now I would like to introduce Ms. Ling Su, who is Senior Methodologist at the Quality and Data Ethics Secretariat of Statistics Canada. In her role as an expert on survey methodology, Ling has spent most of her career on different economic programs, such as the Business Register, tax data programs, and surveys on employment and transportation. Ling, we look forward to your presentation of Statistics Canada's practices in assessing the quality of administrative data, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you to Luis for giving me this opportunity to talk about our experience on data quality evaluation for administrative data. Next one, please. I hope that today I can answer the following 2 questions with my presentation. The first is about the criteria which can be used to determine the quality of the administrative data to be published by National Statistical Office. And the second one is about how to ensure data consistency over time when the underlying admin data is evolving. Next one, please. To answer the first question, I'd like to share with you Statistics Canada's practice on assessing admin data quality. First, we have implemented a data quality evaluation process, which supports statistical program managers by guiding them through all activities related to the data quality assessment. The goal of this process is to identify the data needs, the type of data which can be provided, and how well the supplied data meets the program's needs. Once the data received from the data provider is pre-processed, internal data users can are asked to perform a preliminary assessment of the data. An evaluation report is completed after the initial assessment. This report serves as the corporate documentation and provides valuable information to others. Upon reception of the first sets of regular production data, we have to ensure that the record layout of the production file is in line with the agreement negotiated with the data provider. Also, we need to look at the data to ensure that it meets the data requirements documented in the preliminary assessment of the test file. If necessary, we will provide findings to the pre-processing team. About 8 to 10 months after production data have been received, an evaluation questionnaire will be sent to the internal data users to obtain their detailed analysis of the data, and an evaluation report is also produced. Next, please. Some people may think that data quality equals to accuracy, but this is clearly not true. For instance, very accurate data that is 5-6 years old may no longer be relevant. Also, sometimes you may be asked if you are willing to accept a lower coverage rate or less accurate data to get the data faster. So here's a trade-off between accuracy and timeliness. That's why quality has multiple dimensions. At Statistics Canada, we define quality in 6 dimensions, which are relevance, timeliness, accuracy, accessibility, interpretability, and coherence. We use the quality evaluation questionnaire to assess data quality of administrative data as well. Because data quality is relative to the data needs, we assess fitness for use for admin data as well. Here, I only have a screenshot from our webpage, which shows the content of the questionnaire. I know it's too small to read, so I put some examples below. First, in order to assess the relevance, we could ask if the data is useful in building. Next one, please. Yeah, sorry, that's right. If the data is we ask if the data is useful in building policy, if it helps in long-term planning, if it fills a data gap, or if it can be promoted for new initiatives. For example, health records are used to provide statistics on cancer prevalence. For timeliness, we usually ask if the data release schedule will be in line with the data needs. For instance, when using scanner data to produce a price index, we need to check if the file for a reference file, if the file for a reference month will be available on time according to consumer price index release schedule. Next, please. Accuracy and reliability are usually measured by different types of errors and bias observed in data, such as reporting errors or coverage errors. For instance, if some subgroups of a population are not covered, then statistics produced could be biased. Accessibility and clarity can be assessed by asking if the data will be available as frequently as needed or whether it's available at the time it is needed. If scanner data becomes a primary source for CPI, then we need to ask whether there's any guarantee that the data will still be available in the future. If there's any plan put in place when it is not accessible at 1 month or even longer period. Next one, please. The interpretability is also assessed by the quality of metadata. We evaluate metadata by asking if the metadata is available and complete, if all the concepts, definitions, and code sets have been clearly defined, because any misinterpretation will lead to errors in the final product. Coherence and comparability usually require that the data is produced using standard code sets, same concept variables, and classifications. When two files are linked together using a matching variable, this variable needs to follow the same standard in both files in order to have a successful linkage. Next, please. To address the second question regarding data consistency over time, I'd like to share with you our quality guidelines for ensuring data coherence. To improve coherence, we need to keep concept definitions, classifications, and methodologies up to date. Any new classifications or concepts which affect statistical theories should be well documented. When necessary, the differences between concepts have to be specified, and methods used at different times for the same variables have to be documented as well. When using different methods at different times, impact assessment should be done and well documented. Next, please. The quality indicators we usually use to measure coherence, including the following. We require that well-established standards are used for concepts, definitions, and classifications. Regional and international standards for statistical methods should be followed. And if inconsistency is observed and cannot be fully explained, it must be documented as well. Even though there are tools and evaluations to help, they do not tell the full story because quality is relative to the needs. If the question cannot be seen, so the questions cannot be seen as a decision tree, but rather as a way to guide program managers in their discussion with data providers and in the planning of the processing of the data. Next, please. Here's our contact information. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ling, for your presentation. And please allow me now to introduce Mr. Rudolf Celiak and Ms. Apolonija Oblak-Flander from the National Statistical Office of Slovenia, where Apolonija is at present the Director of Environmental Statistics, and Rudy is Senior Statistician specialized in generalization of the statistical processes for the implementation of surveys. In the past, Apolonija has been involved in many projects of different statistical domains for obtaining data from administrative sources and integrating it into regular statistical production. On his part, Rudy has been deeply involved in the process of establishing a system for standardized quality assessment and quality reporting in the National Statistical Office of Slovenia. Apolonija, Rudolf, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So I and my colleague Rudy will share with you some Slovene experiences on the aspects of the quality issues when using administrative data. I will start and then Rudy will take over in the middle of the presentation. So I will start my presentation since, as you heard, I was working for many years, like bringing administrative sources to the statistical office that in the optimal world of a statistician, uniform guidelines and tools to assess quality of any type of a register database before entering the statistical system to produce official statistics would exist. But in the Slovenian case, especially because we started to use administrative sources already in the late 70s, this was not the case, and it's still not the case. However, that I would say that our experiences show that such a tool could be only for a guidance, actually, but cannot help you to assess this all kinds of sources because you always have to deal with a specific use and with a specific source. And there are namely huge differences among administrative sources and even huge differences in its potential uses. So when at our office we are deciding whether we will be using a particular administrative source and how we will evaluate it, it also depends to a great extent how this administrative source was actually established. And to what extent the statistical needs and concepts were already taken into account at the time of its establishment. So it depends whether the administrative source was established by the NSI. This was the case in the past, but later given to the relevant ministry agency for its maintenance, like it was the Central Population Register, Business Register. So for these administrative sources, the statistical aspect was already taken into account to the largest possible extent. So which is, you know, we have like statistical source, but it's actually administrative source. Then whether this administrative source was established hand in hand with the NSI, like recently established the Register of Accommodation Establishments, where actually Statistical Office was one of the partners when establishing the administrative source, but actually it's maintained and established by a different agency. Then the third case is whether the NSI was involved in the process of the preparation of the legal base for its establishment, And in the fourth case, actually, NSI is not included in its establishment and creation. But I would say that in Slovenia, this is only in rare cases, since the Act on Statistics foresee that whenever a register or a database is established in the country, the national statistical system has to be consulted. So what we have learned is that it is essential to have regular contacts and close cooperation with administrative sources when they are created, when to exchange novelties, to foresee improvements in administrative sources, and to foresee also the statistical needs. And this is done on a regular basis. As in the Norwegian case, we have, depends on the administrative source, but we have these contacts, could be via email, or we have monthly or quarterly meetings and so on. So that it's like a close cooperation, we exchange information on the sources. Then when we are deciding whether a particular administrative source will be used in statistical production depends also on other important aspects, such as coverage. Whether the administrative source has the full coverage of observation units, like the Central Population Register, Business Register, Register of Accommodation Establishments, Organic Farming Register, and so on and so on. Then whether the register has the coverage with the threshold, which could be in the case of the, I don't know, vineyards, orchards, where you have a threshold when some registration needs to occur. And whether there is a register which are created, and to register in that register, there it's relevant a specific incentive for the registration. So all these aspects are very, very important when we are deciding whether a source will be used. It also depends on the compatibility of variables, to what extent the administrative variables are compatible with the statistical variables. It depends if those administrative variables could be adjusted to fit the statistical concepts, and whether there is a potential to combine this administrative source with other administrative and or statistical sources in order to supplement the missing information, to improve the quality, or to achieve the necessary quality of the statistics. It also depends on the forcing usages. Will it be used for defining the trends in short-term statistics, like we are using the data from on automated traffic counters, or do you need very detailed data for structural statistics? And for the quality of administrative sources, it's in the most cases very important that administrative sources are interlinked. This improves the quality, and that it has various uses, as the Norwegian colleague said, like the more the uses, the more interlinkages, the better quality. At least this is our experience. And how we do it? I would say that we don't use a rocket science, actually. What we do comparisons of administrative data with existing statistical surveys, could be longitudinal, or if possible, also in parallel. If we have an existing survey and we have the possibility to run, to use both data in parallel for a certain period. We compare this particular administrative data with other relevant statistical surveys, or we just compare this data with other administrative sources as well. Sometimes you know that some variables occur in different sources, and we cross-check this data. We also do analysis of the changes of the administrative sources over time. We build logical controls on the data from administrative sources, like could be like for the waste statistics, tourism statistics. And we also do analysis at the micro data level. This means that whenever we detect or it's communicated to us some specific information, we actually check case by case what is in the register. We sometimes even perform specific surveys, as it was the case of a special survey with a focus on plausible unregistered immigration conducted in 2016. That was after the 2015 census. And sometimes we even reach for external consultancy, like in the case when we needed to engage an expert on taxation regulations to understand all the databases created based on different taxation regulations. And sometimes we even perform some simulations. Now, when the administrative sources are already used, so we are always using them for production of official statistics, you need to check the quality of administrative sources. This is an ongoing way all the time, since they're changing, and since the administrative sources, they're like a living thing. I could present you many cases how we do it more concretely. I will just, here are just 3 examples listed, maybe how we do it for the Central Population Register, what kind of quality checks we are performing, since we're using this data already since 70s. So we periodically estimate its quality for specific groups of population, could be the students, could be the persons in homes for elderly. We systematically check the so-called administrative survivors, could be the centenarians, especially there was a special analysis after the last combined census that we had in 2002, but we continue with this practice. We occasionally perform special surveys, as I mentioned, and we do these microdata checks. Then with the register of accommodation establishments and collected waste, we actually built, like we built in statistical survey, actually logical controls before data are entering the statistical system. And what we do, we are not allowed actually to, on individual level, as in Norway, communicate those cases to the authority in charge for its maintenance, but we, on a general level, like summarizing the observed irregularities or mistakes, we communicate this with the authorities, and we see in all those cases that the data are improving. And now I will give the word to Rudy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If I may ask Rudy just very quickly in the benefit of time.
Thank you. I see that we are already out of time, but I will just quickly go through the slides. So I just wanted to share with you some experiences from the general point of view. I will just go through this. I just wanted to say that we have established this general framework for accessing quality of the data in our office now for 15 years. When we were thinking about creating this general framework for the case of administrative data, we considered 2 cases. One is quality assessment of servers that use administrative data, and the other is the quality assessment of register and large administrative data sets that are used by many servers. Next slide, please. And when the first case is concerned, when we are assessing the quality of service with administrative data, we just in fact adjusted. I think it was in 2010 when really some need for this emerged for adjusting the quality reports for the case of administrative data. So we adjusted in this case that we added few indicators that are really designed just for the administrative data, and we added some reference metadata that are describing the cases of administrative data. You have some examples of these special quality indicators here, just 3 of them, but I think it was just 5 or 6 of them added at that time. Okay, next slide, please. When the second case is concerned, assessment of registered large data sets, we in fact just started in 2011 a pilot project when we tried to establish a separate quality framework assessment framework just for these cases like business register or population register. We try to assess it independently for particular server, but how good is to be used with different servers. Unfortunately, we didn't put it already in the practice. It was left on the, let's say, on the experimental level. We did a pilot project with when we created a quality report for business register, but unfortunately, due to some circumstances, it not really came into the practice. But we did develop some concepts and approaches, and we have some, I think, one paper that it is also in English, and it describes our ideas, how to approach these cases. Okay, next slide. I just wanted to say that who wants to know more about this, we have two papers that are really concerns these cases that I was talking about, and we put also some references that we found very useful on the European level. This SNET quality guidelines is quite good, and also these UNICE guidelines. Okay. I know that we are out of time, so this very quickly, but if you have any questions further on, you can put it to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both Apollonie and Rudolf. I'm very sorry for the shortness of time, and I'm sure that the conversation will continue after the formal presentations to go into more details. So now, last but not least, I would like to introduce Mr. Vincent Essambe-Bonnet, a statistician and project manager at the National Institute of Statistics of Cameroon, where he has worked for 15 years. He is in charge of statistical coordination and cooperation, and he has vast experience on sectorial statistical information systems for the development of statistics from administrative sources. Mr. Essambe-Bonnet will be speaking in French, but the transcript of this presentation will be published in English alongside its recordings. Mr. Essambe-Bonnet, the floor is yours.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Bonjour à tous. C'est un plaisir renouvelé de prendre part à ces travaux. Je vais faire la présentation en français. Je pense que Martino aura au besoin faire une petite traduction en anglais pour ceux qui sont d'expression anglaise. Donc, déjà, ce qu'il faut indiquer dès l'entame de notre propos, c'est que au niveau du Cameroun, nous avons un système national d'information statistique et que le système, à notre niveau, il est décentralisé. Cela suppose que chaque administration est encouragée à produire les statistiques qui sont de son ressort. Et bien évidemment, ces statistiques sont produites en exploitant essentiellement les statistiques de sources administratives. Ce qui est produit par ces administrations sectorielles est fortement utilisé. Déjà à leur niveau, il y a les politiques, les stratégies qu'il faille élaborer, suivre et évaluer. Donc, ces statistiques sont principalement utilisées dans ce cadre-là. Et aussi, nous, au niveau de l'Institut national de la statistique, nous les utilisons pour élaborer beaucoup de synthèses statistiques et aussi pour l'élaboration des comptes nationaux. Donc, vous comprenez que la question de la qualité pour ces statistiques de sources administratives nous interpelle au plus haut lieu. Donc, c'est dans cet esprit que même déjà au niveau de la loi statistique, la nouvelle qui a été promulguée le 20 juillet 2020, un accent particulier est mis sur cette question de qualité en termes de statistiques. Donc, la production statistique au niveau national s'appuie principalement sur la stratégie nationale du domaine de la statistique qui est élaborée de manière participative et qui fait en sorte que toutes les productions statistiques qui sont programmées au niveau de chaque administration en s'appuyant sur les sources administratives figurent bel et bien dans ce document qui est d'une importance capitale. Aussi, il y a la question des visas statistiques sur laquelle on continue d'avoir un regard important. Bon, dans une slide un peu plus loin, vous comprendrez pourquoi la question des visas statistiques nous aide dans la production des statistiques de sources administratives et dans leur qualité. Donc, c'est une loi qui s'appuie pour beaucoup de ces articles sur les principes fondamentaux de la statistique des Nations Unies et puis la Charte africaine de la statistique. Donc, concernant la qualité des données, il faut dire que depuis quelques temps déjà, le système national d'information statistique du Cameroun s'est orienté vers la nécessité de procéder à des évaluations beaucoup plus soutenues. Donc, pour arriver à le faire, il a fallu que nous élaborions, avec l'accompagnement de Statistique Canada et aussi d'Afristat, que nous élaborions un cadre que nous appelons le cadre national d'assurance qualité. Donc, ce cadre a été élaboré et présente de manière globale vraiment les bonnes pratiques en termes de production statistique. Et pour sa mise en œuvre, il a fallu procéder à l'élaboration d'un certain nombre de lignes directrices pour aider à la mise en œuvre du cadre, tel que je l'indiquais, et accompagner les producteurs de statistiques qui sont localisés dans les administrations sectorielles. Donc, nous avons élaboré des lignes directrices pour les enquêtes et les recensements qui sont consultables sur le site internet de l'INS du Cameroun. Après cet exercice important et au regard de ce que je venais d'évoquer tantôt, nous avons pensé important de nous focaliser un peu sur la production des statistiques de sources administratives. La question centrale étant comment nous faisons pour accroître le niveau de production de ces statistiques et comment nous faisons pour améliorer la qualité de ce qui est produit. Donc, ce document a été élaboré. Il est également disponible sur le site internet de l'INS et c'est sur cette base que cette présentation a été préparée. Donc, ce que nous disons déjà, c'est que nous voulons améliorer la production de statistiques de sources administratives. Comme nous sommes dans un système statistique décentralisé, nous accompagnons les administrations sectorielles à mettre en place des systèmes d'information statistique à périmètre sectoriel. Bon, à notre niveau, c'est vrai que nous avons des secteurs qui sont le regroupement des ministères, mais nous avons même essayé de commencer un peu plus bas en nous disant que si chaque ministère arrive déjà à mettre en place un dispositif qui lui permette d'exploiter les registres, d'exploiter les rapports d'activité qui sont réalisés sur le terrain et d'en tirer les statistiques qui, à ce moment-là, sont un peu comme c'est un produit fatal. Donc, ce dispositif devrait pouvoir assurer donc la remontée de l'information jusqu'à son traitement, son analyse et puis sa consommation. Donc, nous focalisons sur les systèmes sectoriels d'information statistique. Et pour leur élaboration, nous nous appuyons sur, on va dire, à peu près 6 points. Le premier point est celui de la détermination des besoins en information statistique, parce que nous essayons de faire en sorte que nous produisions ce qui est effectivement utile pour les administrations sectorielles et pour tout le pays. Donc, il y a les questions de besoins en information statistique qui sont déjà développées en termes d'identification. Il y a la gestion de l'exploitation des sources de données que nous regardons également, avant maintenant d'aller identifier les différents acteurs qui interviennent dans le processus de production statistique. Ensuite, nous avons l'animation du système. Il faudrait pouvoir mettre en place un dispositif de coordination et que, pour que tout au long de la chaîne, que chacun puisse effectivement jouer son rôle et qu'il n'y ait pas des interférences entre les missions des uns et des autres. Et puis aussi, bien évidemment, pour que le système puisse être fonctionnel, il y a un certain nombre de conditions préalables qu'il faudrait pouvoir remplir, notamment la question des ressources, les ressources humaines, les ressources financières et autres. Bon, en ce qui concerne le processus de production statistique de sources administratives, tel que je l'indiquais, il a été élaboré sur la base déjà du modèle générique, je crois, qui a été déjà présenté par Juliette de la Colombie, donc le GSBPM. C'est exactement le même modèle qui nous a permis déjà d'élaborer les lignes directrices de manière générale pour les enquêtes et les recensements. Et ces lignes directrices ont été adaptées pour pouvoir assurer un suivi des statistiques de sources administratives. Bon, bien évidemment, les étapes sont plus ou moins similaires, c'est-à-dire qu'on va partir de la conception et de l'élaboration des documents techniques. On va procéder à la collecte des données, on va procéder au traitement et à l'analyse de ces données, et puis nous allons déboucher sur la diffusion avant maintenant de procéder à l'évaluation de la production. Donc, ce sont des éléments qui, comme vous le savez, tous permettent d'assurer une certaine production statistique qui soit encadrée de manière qualitative. Donc, cela a déjà été évoqué par Juliette dans sa présentation. Il faut donc dire qu'en ce moment, en attendant que le document qui a été élaboré soit véritablement utilisé par les différents acteurs, parce qu'il faut dire que nous allons procéder à une phase d'appropriation soutenue pour que les uns et les autres puissent bien s'approprier le contenu et voir comment est-ce qu'on peut l'utiliser. Mais pour l'instant, ce que nous faisons, c'est que nous avons un certain nombre de rencontres que nous faisons avec les responsables des unités statistiques qui font la production statistique de sources administratives. Donc, dans tout le travail qui est réalisé au niveau de l'Institut national de la statistique, il est fait de manière participative. Donc, très souvent, ces administrations sont associées non seulement pour qu'elles nous apportent des inputs, mais pour qu'elles prennent également la main, pour qu'elles puissent également prendre la main sur tout ce qui est fait comme activité statistique. Donc, il y a plusieurs rencontres comme celle-là que nous avons qui nous permettent d'échanger, qui nous permettent de partager avec ces administrations le contenu de tout ce que nous élaborons comme document de coordination, comme document méthodologique qui les aide à travailler aisément. Donc aussi, bien évidemment, nous avons vraiment beaucoup parlé des questions de besoins, mais de plus en plus au niveau du système, l'INS est interpellé par ces administrations qui demandent un accompagnement dans la production statistique. Donc, à partir de ce besoin qui est déclenché, nous avons habituellement deux attitudes. Celle de mettre du personnel de l'INS à la disposition de l'administration qui sollicite un appui technique. Cela permet que le travail qui est réalisé au niveau de l'administration pour la production statistique en exploitant les statistiques de sources administratives puisse être techniquement encadré par les collègues de l'INS qui vont faire cet accompagnement. L'autre approche, c'est que nous allons directement en collaboration avec l'administration. Donc, nous signons des accords, des conventions, des contrats avec des objectifs et des résultats spécifiques. Nous faisons ce travail avec beaucoup de ministères aujourd'hui et on arrive a produit un certain nombre de documents d'analyse, de documents de synthèse statistique qui s'appuient principalement sur l'exploitation des registres et des rapports d'activité qui sont disponibles au niveau de chacune de ces administrations. En fait, comme pour dire que nous focalisons vraiment beaucoup plus sur les statistiques de sources administratives. Une chose qu'il serait important de relever ici, c'est que en réalité, le travail est fait de manière participative. Donc, le fait de faire ce travail de façon participative avec les responsables des unités statistiques de ces ministères nous permet de procéder à un transfert de compétences. L'idée étant que lorsque nous voulons produire un annuaire statistique, par exemple, pour une administration, nous le faisons une fois avec elle. On leur montre les approches et les techniques à développer, tout en espérant que dès lors que les ressources sont disponibles, que cet exercice puisse être répliqué dans les années à venir. Donc, au stade d'aujourd'hui, comme je l'indiquais, nous avons élaboré les lignes directrices pour la production des statistiques et sources administratives. Donc, dans les mois à venir, nous allons engager des phases de formation ou, si vous voulez, des phases de renforcement de capacité de toutes les administrations qui sont productrices ou détentrices de statistiques de sources administratives. Nous pensons que cet exercice devrait pouvoir les aider à améliorer les process utilisés pour la production statistique et au final, améliorer la qualité de leur production statistique. Donc, cela va nous amener à effectuer des évaluations permanentes. Donc, en ce moment, nous sommes en train de faire les évaluations pour les statistiques issues des enquêtes de recensement. Donc, à l'avenir, nous allons également engager des exercices d'évaluation de la qualité des statistiques de sources administratives. Et c'est d'ailleurs la raison pour laquelle, en ce moment, nous leur demandons de documenter. Il faudrait pouvoir arriver à documenter tout ce que nous faisons dans la production statistique. C'est ça qui va vraiment permettre qu'on puisse apporter des corrections et améliorer ce qui est réalisé. Donc voilà, mesdames et messieurs, la petite communication que nous avons préparée, on a voulu partager avec vous. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Isambeboume. Thank you very much for your presentation, and again, apologies for the shortness of time. I would just like to take a couple of minutes to first thank all participants for their contributions, for bringing to the table all your experience and sharing the approaches that your different organizations are following to ensure and improve data quality of statistics based on administrative sources. We had very interesting points raised by all of you, and I am not aiming to make a full summary of this. That would be impossible in the very brief time that we still have. I just want to raise a few things that stuck to my mind from different presentations. From the stage setting, the presentation by Juliette from Dania, it is important, I think, to emphasize the need for a specific focus on data quality assessment frameworks for data coming from administrative sources beyond the generic data quality assessment frameworks. And the usefulness of taking the view of the statistical business process. So how it has been adapted in Colombia, and we have seen in also other countries like Cameroon for organizing the work on the improving the quality of data based on administrative records. Juliet spoke a lot about institutional capacities, but also something that I would like to highlight are these tensions that exist between self-diagnosis or self-assessment of quality from the sources and the assessment that is done by the users of those records, the internal users that Census Canada also referred to. Also, related to this contrast between input-focused or output-focused data quality. Both are important, but one question would be where to start. From the experience from Norway, one thing that was very interesting to me was this idea of a win-win situation where the feedback on data quality is benefiting both the users of the data in the statistical office as well as the owners of the data, and that data quality reporting has to be both at the aggregate level, at the general level, and also at the very specific level, sharing feedback on suspicious records, and how can this be implemented in practice is very interesting to see from the experience of Norway. From the remarks from our colleague from Statistics Canada, I think also something very interesting was the emphasis on supporting internal program managers, internal data users, the relying on pre-processing teams to be able to obtain findings on data quality and being able to provide feedback and identify ways of improving as users of the data internally in Statistics Canada. And the emphasis made that data quality is not only about accuracy, it's also about timeliness, interpretability, and coherence, and ultimately the fitness for use. From Slovenia, one thing that I also took on board, and of course, again, not a complete summary, but one thing that is very interesting to emphasize is the need to have both a general approach to data quality assessment, supplemented with the ability to dealing with the specifics of each data set and of the specifics of each data use. So there is no single size fits all approach, and although it is very important to have a general approach for data quality, especially when dealing with multiple actors providing data, administrative data, it is also very important to be able to work with the specifics of a very heterogeneous set of data sources. And finally, from the presentation from Cameroon, I think one thing that is extremely interesting for many countries is how to approach data quality in a decentralized system, where it is crucial to have a participatory approach, where the statistical office can provide support to the different actors across the national statistical system, with the common goal to improve data quality and the quality of data generated by different members of the national statistical system. So those are just a few highlights, I would say, I would like to suggest for the common discussion and on this. With this, I would like to invite you to close this first stage of this clinic. Thanking all of you again, thanking my colleagues from the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, from the Statistics Division. Several experts have been very active behind the scenes to make this clinic a reality, and I don't want to miss anybody, so I will not name them individually, but I really appreciate all the support that has been given to these data clinics, both from the Secretariat side and from our colleagues from National Statistical Offices.